Hey folks, Evil Pajamas here with a follow-up video from my initial review on Neoverse. If you aren't at all familiar with the game, I would suggest that you watch that video first. If you are familiar with the game, then let's go ahead and get started. So one of the strengths of digital deck building games is the amount of variety that you can have between runs. Allows for a lot of different strategies. I picked this run in particular to highlight that Neoverse does this particularly well. So this run was done with Summoner Helena, whose main mechanic revolves around summoning of 3 different minion types. And those minions are then triggered by different types of cards being played. However, in this run, I went with a completely different strategy that focused around not having and I'm sorry, I didn't mean minion, I meant guardian. That's what they're called. Not having a guardian out and using that to cumulatively buff the summoner's attack. Better hurry up and defeat this thing before Rocksteady and Bebop pop out of it with the Foot Clan. So the reason I tried to go with this strategy is because on my first card selection I was offered the constant card Own Effort, which gives you +1 force at the beginning of your turn if you do not have any command. And command is the resource that the summoner uses to activate the Guardian's triggered ability. So you could either manage to not have command at the end of your turn, or you could just be less reliant on having a Guardian and thus accumulating less command. So I decided to give this strategy a try. So the next thing to do would have been to decide how my skill tree or other card selection would have factored into such a strategy. So I went ahead and went with Save Mana, which appeared in one of the slots on the skill tree, which is random. And I thought this would be a good synergy because this would allow me to accumulate mana over turn to turn, while hopefully getting some additional cards that will also buff force, so that I can buff the summoner's attack and then save up that mana to attack in later rounds when I have more force accumulated. Banish this guy and his futuristic cod plate back to the Diablo universe where he came from. It's very fortunate here that my card selection after the second battle gave me this option for repetitive training, which really worked out well with the strategy because I already selected the card you saw on the first selection that also generates its bonus off of having no command. So the initial outline for my strategy seemed to work out favorably right after the second battle. So I went ahead and doubled down on this strategy because I had to immediately upgrade the card I had just obtained after the second round. So my strategy gets off to a slow start, and I am forced going into the boss stage at the end of the first set of 5 battles to invest a lot into getting some data store purchases to sort of offset the fact that I believe I'm down to like 17 health going into the boss stage, which is a little bit low. Well, that certainly is not useful when I'm already low on HP. I have the impression that this is going to be a loss. I noticed in this part of the boss fight that for some reason the precision effect here is absorb bodily fluid, which I feel to be a little bit of an odd trigger there, although I'm sure many people, maybe like to see that from this character. So it is a super close fight, but I think it paid off to do some of that data store purchasing, and I slipped by the first boss. Oh, I think I'll have 1 HP left here, actually, or slightly more than that actually. Bad at math, 4 HP. Barely. This dual wielding friggin' snipes. That card's done more for black people than maybe any other card except for Abraham Lincoln. Gotta take the gecko here. And by gecko I mean chameleon. So after stage 2-3, I'm offered a stealth paint, and I grab that, hoping that it'll fit into a sort of a delaying strategy of building up some force and then using more powerful attacks. An issue I'd been running into my deck, though, initially, is I hadn't really been taking enough attack cards. I had been relying primarily on a couple of cards that generate damage every time you play a card, which unfortunately don't synergize well with Stealth Paint because they are low-cost cards, typically go well with that, where Stealth Paint likes to see high-class cards. So, not necessarily the best selection there, but hoping to find a way to make it work at that point because it's early enough in the run. That is a lot of damage incoming. So as I get into the second boss battle, the engine is picking up a little and my deck's doing fairly well. Run into a little bit of difficulty because the boss opens with back-to-back attacks that actually block the usages of certain types of cards, whether it be defend or attack, which sort of really put a crimp on my sort of playing a lot of cards to trigger the damage per card played that I was getting from the 2 cards that I started with in my deck. But on top of that, this boss also has the very popular video game trope of skeleton dragons that turn into a pile of bones when you kill them and then come back. I don't know, but for some reason developers love that mechanic when it involves a skeleton dragon. But the build works out and I do manage to get by the second boss as well. So as I progress through stage 3, or set 3 of the missions, my deck continues to have a little bit of trouble with not having enough attacks. Fortunately, I have some cards that cycle through rather quickly, letting me draw 3 and keep 1. But because my deck relies on a particular constant release power, 2 copies of that does 1 damage to each enemy every time you play a card, I ran into a little difficulty with one of the mechanics where a clone would spawn of the monster every time you played a constant card. It slowed me down a little, but managed to get through that. And then also working my way into the boss, I was pretty happy with the state of my deck. I was up to 6 starting mana and was also able to frequently carry over mana into the next turn. So the last time I'd actually completed a run, this would have been the end of the run, and I'm not sure if this had to do something with the item I equipped at the beginning, the cube, or if it's just some content they added. But I beat the boss, and it was not the end of the run. There was 3 additional bosses, which I'm going to include as a bonus footage of here. The first of these additional bosses is this Ragnaros-looking dude that spawns with 2 orbs that buff him. They're invincible for 5 turns. So you sort of have to wait it out and be able to survive the damage before you can burn him down, because they keep giving him buffs. But managed to get through that guy. The second boss is a group of 3 beetles they're all pretty tough, but fortunately they're linked in a way that if one dies, they all die. The catch to this is they frequently cast an invulnerability buff, so you can't just burn one down as quickly as you'd like. finally, you head into the last bonus boss, and it's this sort of T-1000 looking clone. Reminds me of sort of the whoever that last boss is on the Dead or Alive. I don't remember, it's 3 or 5, the one that's on the first Xbox 360. And this one actually has 2 forms. So after you defeat it the first time, which is a mirror form of your character, the thing pops out of the box, and then if you defeat it, then I was worried there was actually a 3rd form, but then actually the box just like turns against it or something and crushes it. The box looks like identical to the cube that I put at the beginning of the run, and it will tell you what it's for. And it's also some feature in the lore of this game because it's featured in the beginning movie animation. So that's it. Just wanted to share a run where highlighting how you can do a little bit different of a build and how much flexibility this game offers in a deck building game. So if you like this video, please click like and please hit subscribe in the bottom right corner if you would like to see more content like this. Thanks so much for tuning in for the whole video, and have a great day.